Okay.
Go ahead.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Double A Team Podcast. I'm your host, Stephen Nagishi, and thank you for joining us once again on this Sunday evening. We are getting a little bit of a delay here. I apologize for late start as usual. As always, my co-host is Ken Fang from Awful Announcing. Ken, how are you tonight?
Good, Stephen. Good to be on with you. We got a couple of Game 7s going on right now in both the NHL and the NBA, and already St. Louis is up 2-0, and Connor Hellebuyck is shaky once again. So, for Winnipeg, so we'll see what happens there. Hopefully, the Jets, who are the number one seed in the Western Conference, can get it back together right now in Game 7. But right now, they're down 2-0 early in the first period.
Ken, I'm going to have to kind of defer to you in terms of the scrolling and control because my
I can do that.
kind of
I'll be
broke
more
up.
than happy to do that.
Yeah, crazy stuff happened on my keypad, unfortunately, on my laptop. So I apologize to you on that regard. Ken, thank you for joining me once again. It looks like I seem to have gotten my keypad at least working for the time being. Let's start with the news that we kind of touched on last week. There is an update on the prank call made on Shedeur Sanders. The NFL made a very quick work on the Atlanta Falcons and Jeff Ulbrich, the father of Jack Ulbrich, the man that who was behind the prank call made on Shedeur Sanders. The Falcons were fined $250,000, $250,000 fine. Jeff Ulbrich himself was hit with a $100,000 fine, which was, I knew that the NFL was going to, make a quick work on this. I made a comments that first and foremost that Jack Ulbrich is not a kid. Okay, I know there are a lot of people out trying to justify him being a 21-year-old kid, which makes absolutely no sense. When you're at an age of 20 or 21 years old, you're at a legal drinking age. That makes you an adult, and trying to justify him being a stupid kid or something that people are trying to make out of is just simply I don't know, makes absolutely no sense in my opinion. There was a yeah, I'm here. I'm just a little bit of loss of words right now, but just trying to calm myself. But there was a press the day on the day that I think the how do I say this? The press conference was done when Jeff Ulbrich finally made his public apologies to in front of a public, which thank God he finally came in and made that apologies. I'm going to try and play the clip of his apologies through somebody that was actually, not through the NFL or one of those, official sites. I want you to take a listen, Ken, on the apologies in case if you have not listened to
go ahead
Jeff Ulbrich. Here we go.
Yep, and go ahead and make that full screen.
Sanders family, what occurred.
Okay, here we go. Sorry about that.
First of all, I'd like to publicly apologize to Shedeur and Sanders family for what occurred. Second of all, I want to publicly apologize to Mr. Blank, Terry Fontenot, Reed Morris, and the entire Falcons organization. My actions of not protecting confidential data were inexcusable. My son's actions were absolutely inexcusable. And for that, we are both deeply sorry. The NFL has taken action, and I fully respect the punishment. We take full responsibility, my son and myself, and we will not be appealing the fine in any way. Going forward, I promise my son and I will work hard to demonstrate we are better than this. Again, I'm deeply sorry for our actions.
Questions?
Hi, Ken. I know I spoke about this last. Hold on a second. Okay. All right. Now we're back here.
I got you back.
I know. I touched on this. That this is a nightmare for every parent, that their child would do something of this stupidity, and you're ended up getting fined six figures, $100,000. That is a lot of money for anyone, even if you're like a defensive coordinator making $1 million or $2 million. That is a lot of money.
Yep.
And good for, at least I'll give Jeff Ulbrich credit for standing in front of media and accept his accountability of this matter. And it's very, very emotional, because you love your child,
Right.
Obviously Dan Patrick spoke with somebody within the NFL who was very livid about this situation, where how egregious of this breach is. You have to be worried about the access to the medical records, addresses, and so forth. The other thing that you have to kind of take into consideration is, why is the defensive coordinator having information of a quarterback that obviously that's none of your business? We're dealing with an offensive quarterback or offensive player that you're not going to be working with. So there are a lot of still unanswered questions that needed to be sorted out on this, but obviously NFL making an example out of both the Falcons, the Ulbrichs, Jeff and his son Jax, 21 years old. Ken, I want you to kind of delve into the your mindset about the NFL, how they handle it, and the punishment that the Ulbrichs receive, because I know there's still people out there who thinks that this is not a big deal, or don't really understand the severity of these data breaches. And I said this before, and I'll say it again, as somebody who worked in IT myself, you can't leave informations out in the public. And I won't delve too much into my own personal experiences, but I've left my information unattended, and I've been reprimanded for leaving it out for myself. And it's a bit of an irony, as an IT professional, you kind of get complacent and make you and the company that you work for in a negative light. So I'm done talking about this. Give me your honest opinion on the apologies and the aftermath of this prank call a week later after the draft is now over.
Well, I think the NFL handled it the best way they could. They've been an example out of Jeff Ulbrich. They had to fine him. They had no choice, Stephen. The NFL, like I said, we said the NFL takes us very seriously. NFL security has its own entity. When they see something like this, they act on it very quickly. Like you said, these the numbers are there. And usually we hear that the assistant coaches treat it very treat their property, very securely. They treat them well. In this case, it was a little careless. So there's no doubt about that. The son, I think, learned a lesson in not touching his father's equipment. Now, I'm sure the dad said, "Okay, yeah."
Well, at least stealing confidential information, which I think Jeff Ulbrich learned the hard way of leaving unattended, even if it's inside of your own home.
Right. But I think now that there's going to be some more, there's going to be memos put out saying, "Hey, look, this is your property. You need to. You are not allowed to bring this home with you. If you do, there's going to be several like two-factor authentication that to only access this information, and you're not going to be able to. And your son, if he's going to, your kids, if they're going to look at it, aren't going to be able to access this. Okay, so I think that's going to be a lesson that's going to be like learned the hard way for a lot of coaches who may have thought that they could, do something similar. Maybe let the kids use the iPad while they're at home. I don't think that's going to happen anymore. No one else is going to. It's just going to be the coaches. It's just going to be them. They're not going to be allowed to give it out if they take the iPad home, or they're going to have to leave it under lock and key securely back in their offices, and they're not going to be able to bring work home with them. And I think that's probably what's going to happen. That's probably going to be the case, Stephen. They're just going to have to leave the iPad at home, or in this case, the Microsoft Surfaces, because that's the league sponsor. So they're not going to be able to bring the tablets home. I think 21 years old. I know you're saying that the son is an adult. I also think there's a little immaturity there as well. There's got to, when you're 21, yes, you are an adult, but there's also still a lot of immaturity that goes along when you're 21. Yes, you can drink, you can drive, you can do a lot of things, but I think that also at the same time, he's still responsible. Okay.
Yes.
He still has to learn. He has
Being
still
an
has
adult comes with an added extra responsibility when you're older.
You've got yeah, absolutely. I mean, 21, you're immature. I like to think some of the things at 21 that I did, I'm not going to be doing at 62. So, but still, at the same time, you are responsible for your own actions. And while he's probably still living at home, he could still at this point be living in his own place. So, you do these pranks. He's still a student. I think it was at Georgia Tech, I believe it was, Stephen, where he was I
don't know. He's a student somewhere. He's a student somewhere for sure.
Yeah. So still,
student for somewhere for sure. Absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, it's not like he's a PhD candidate, or working at Harvard, where you're a little bit older, but still,
exactly.
There's a lot of immaturity there, and he still has a lot of growing up to do. And I think that
Right.
he's learned a valuable lesson about taking someone's property that is not yours, that is supposed to be secure,
or personal information for that matter.
Yeah,
yes, absolutely.
I think he's definitely going to know. And the fact is they were quick to apologize, I think is a good thing. And then the fact that he's basically caused his father six figures, and when you're an assistant coach, you don't make that much money. $100,000 is a lot of money. So
right.
I think probably that there was a lot of yelling going on in the old brick house. There was probably something that said, look, if I'm going to pay this $100,000, some of it's got to come out of your pocket too. So, I know he's not going to pay $100,000 to his dad, but I'm sure that there's something like saying, hey, you did this. You're costing me money. It's probably 1/3 of my salary or whatever. You gotta come up with some of this. So there's going to be definitely some repercussions in the Ulbrich household. But I think the NFL made the right call on this. The NFL did everything quite quickly, and I think, like I said, from now on, there's going to be a lot more those tablets and any information, phones, any type of electronic devices that are going to be sent out by the National Football League to their coaches. And any type of staff is going to be treated a lot more securely from now on.
Right. And, there are some policies that needs to be in place about, bringing those types of, equipments, tablets to your own home. Because once you leave the premise, it's just basically all you're the one responsible for everything. If you misplace it, if you lose these things, whether it's at an airport, at a coffee shop, or at a restaurant, or wherever, it might be. And it's hard for me to fathom that, these coaches or assistants would even take the tablets with them wherever they go. Misplacing those things can be a excuse me.
Mm-hmm.
A very, very challenging aspect of it, because now you're going to have to, remotely wipe out all the information that is in that device from being, leaked out or being accessed by some, random individual. With maybe perhaps they were, tailing the coaches and trying to steal information about the medical records, the interview process, the interview, what was discussed in the interviews, phone numbers, personal addresses. These things are very, very serious.
Right.
I don't know, Ken, if you remember, there were a couple of instances where I think South American, maybe some, bunch of, thieves entering the U.S. on a 90-day travel visa or whatever. They would go and, steal valuables from athletes' house. I don't know if you remember these types of stories in the past, right?
Yeah, I have to defer to you on that one. I'm not.
Okay, so there are some instances where targeting the wealthy, famous athletes, Hollywood stars and so forth. So, and we all know about the existence of dark web, right, Ken?
Right. Yeah, of course.
Right.
And I do have to
so
say
those
this.
things are readily being traded or being sold to the highest bidders. And I'm not saying that Jax had a motive to do such things outside of prank calls. Prank calls are obviously pale in comparison to maybe extortion, kidnapping, or theft of that kind. So the NFL themselves really have to come up with a more of an updated solution when it comes to handling these devices and informations outside of the the team headquarters. So hopefully, there is a this is not just done with the Falcons, and then we find the DC and his son for being stupid, and how careless they were when it comes to handling these private information. So hopefully this is a first step towards NFL updating the policy so that things like this does not happen again, because that Jax Ulbrich unfortunately gave a blueprint of sorts for idiots out there who are trying to do either the same thing again, or it could even become, like I said, it becomes a little more brazen, like stealing, or even kidnapping, theft, and those types of informations, because, somebody has, like a gambling debt or something like that, and then have to resort to doing these types of illegal activities of sorts, and I understand I'm probably going out there, but, these things happen, not just, maybe not happen quite often in the US, but if you go to places like Europe, you see, a lot of match fixings, ties with the mobs and stuff like that. These things are rampant, unfortunately, especially in the world of soccer. So hopefully we don't have to, go that far here in America. But Ken, if you have any final thoughts on this, I'll let you finish.
Let me just say this, like where I work, computer, there's work computers and work computers that we take home. We're responsible for securing, because people use them to work from home. I don't work from home. I choose not to, but there are those who will work 3 to 4 days at home using their computer. There was one instance where a trainee this week actually had a work computer stolen out of her car, and it happened. Luckily, we have IT that can brick the computer. Bricking means that they can disable it, so that person who stole it won't be able to get in the computer and see any proprietary or customer information that's on there. So, and I'm sure the NFL would be able to do that too. In this case of the Ulbrichs, they might have bricked that tablet because it was compromised. So they will probably say, all right, you're going to get another one, but now you're going to have to be a lot more careful, and you won't be able to bring this home. So in this case, and I'm sure the NFL may have put updates on all of those tablets remotely, so that none of those tablets can be used and used again, or perhaps might, like I said, might give new devices out to all of those coaches, so that they won't be able to be seen by other by third parties other than the personnel that they're given to. So in this case, like I said, Stephen, and I know that you work in IT, we have where I work, we have a vast IT department looking over hundreds and thousands of devices that go out to all of our personnel who are working from home. It's all very, and people, and stealing, it happens all the time. It really happens. But
Fortunately, yes.
unfortunately, it does happen. But you're responsible for those devices, and you just can't be irresponsible. We've seen instances where people put a bag down at the airport to go into a coffee shop to get coffee, and then the next thing you know, someone steals the bag and they lose their work laptop. So you just have to be very careful. You can't.
I'll be honest. I've been guilty of that. I'm guilty as charged on that. Unfortunately, I've one time misplaced a bag with the laptop, which mine as well as my work was in it, and I panicked. I had to call the company, and I was fully prepared for being fired for being reckless with stuff like that. But thankfully, somebody was kind enough to drop it off at the lost and found inside the airport, and I was able to retrieve my laptop, and thankfully nothing was stolen inside in terms of the information, everything. But I know my reputation took a big hit, and we had to do a comprehensive training. The clients also had to change the policies in terms of taking laptops home, or even working from home for that matter as well.
Right.
So there are and I understand if people are watching this and complaining about our world experience doesn't really apply to this incident. No, it's real. If our information gets stolen, and if it turns out that we left our computer unattended, or intentionally, unintentionally, we face consequences. We both loses our jobs, and sometimes those things we never recover from those types of things, personally and professionally. Right. So
and I'll bring up another example too. How this happened. The company I used to work for, Apple. We remember about a long time. There was a person who left their prototype iPhone on a bar and left it there. And then somehow it got leaked out about the information about an upcoming iPhone. I forget whether it was the 10, the 11, or whatever, but it was a big leak. And so that employee was fired. That employee for being so irresponsible and leaving a prototype iPhone out in a bar, which was unlocked, and everybody was able to see and was to see what was coming up on the new iPhone, which is going to be released. And usually iPhone are released in September of every month. This was like in the summertime. And so someone was able to get the information and say, hey, and leak this to the press, leak this to the media. So that person, that engineer, was fired for leaving that out. So you have to be careful with all this information. And you say, and we all, and I know you said that, Stephen, that the guy's the son is responsible, and I agree. There's no doubt about that. But you just can't. You have to be careful with you can't be careless. With leaving work information out there. And I know that's really easy to do, to say, hey, it's my computer. It becomes a part of you. You becomes attached to it. But you put it down, say, I'm going to just go 1 second into the coffee shop and just leave my bag here. The whole thing is that you got to have it on you at all times. You just can't have it out there, and because there are people out there. And Stephen, you talk about it, your own personal experience, and it happens. You can say it's not going to happen to me, but it does happen. And I've seen it before. And like I said, the person at work, a new hire, had the work computer stolen right out of her car. So like I said, my work was very, very quick to brick that computer to make sure that no one else could see the proprietary information. You can say that's just one computer, but one computer can bring a downfall of a company. We've seen it before with
Exactly.
ransomware. We've seen it. So I know that we're
Right.
being a little bit. I know you may feel that we're being holier than thou on this one, but until it happens to you, you can't be
Right.
you can't be cavalier. You can't be cavalier and say, "Oh, this is just one thing." No, you have to say that. Look, one person's actions can bring down a company, and whether it's that opening of that email that brings a virus. We've seen it all before. So you just have to be careful of whatever you do. So and we can put a bow on this, Stephen. I just do think that the league is taking, and I'm sure we haven't heard about it yet, but I'm sure the league is going to be cracking down very hard on devices that go out and are used at home. And like I said, I'm sure that they're going to be put under lock and key and say, you can't bring this home. You've got to keep it here. We know that you got to work on your game plans, but if you're going to do it, you got to do that. You got to do it in the stadium, in the facility, and not bring that home.
Right. Ken, a week later, speaking of Shedeur Sanders, I want you to, I want your feelings regarding Shedeur Sanders as a prospect. Now that the draft is officially over, has your thoughts on Shedeur Sanders changed a little bit, or you're still kind of even keel about him as a prospect, and that maybe there shouldn't be any high hopes for the upcoming season that Sanders could somehow, play significantly?
Well, I do believe he's probably going to start. There's probably not going to be a regular starter because you have Joe Flacco there, and there's going to be other people vying for playing time. We'll see what happens. But I have to say, Stephen, that Shedeur Sanders, he's going to be the most scrutinized 5th-round draft pick of all time. We all heard about now, since it's come out, about how NFL executives didn't like the attitude that Shedeur Sanders had in their interviews, and how he came across as a little bit arrogant in some of those interviews, and also refusing to do having their pro days, going to absolutely refusing to do and basically saying, "Hey, look, I'm the 1st-round draft pick. You come to me. I'm not going to come to you." You have to learn in the NFL that any action you do is going to, and Aaron Rodgers learned this when he dropped. Brady Quinn learned this when he dropped. All types of Dan Marino even dropped because of an alleged situation with his knee. Everyone was backed off on drafting him until the Miami Dolphins drafted him, and we all remember that Ken O'Brien got drafted before him. 3 or 4 other quarterbacks got drafted because of rumors about an injury or even drug use. So in this case, for Shedeur Sanders, when you piss off NFL executives, you go down hard. And just like Al Davis says, he must go down, and he must go down hard. And about sacking a quarterback early, Shedeur Sanders, I think, learned a lesson here. That is that when you
but you're not gonna fall into those people who believe that there's a conspiracy about collusion and amongst all other NFL teams.
No, I'm not saying that. I just said that Shedeur Sanders basically. I don't think it's a race factor. Okay, I'm not going to say that at all.
Yeah, I don't think so either. Yeah, I don't think so either.
I just think that the fact that NFL executives got pissed off about A, Shedeur not having an agent, B, Deion Sanders basically spouting off, and C, I just think that the fact is that Shedeur didn't sit down really much for interviews, and that hurt him. Because when it's NFL executives want to draft you, they want interviews, and they want to get to know you, and they want to build that relationship with you. And I think a lot of them felt that they couldn't build a relationship with Shedeur Sanders, and when they didn't get that, he fell, and he fell hard. Now I know that the Sanders are going to take this and try to run with it, and that's okay. That's fine. That's what the Sanders do. But I think also too, he's got to get an agent. B, he can't use his dad as an agent. He's got to say, Dad, I'm firing you as an agent. I need my own agent. And from what I understand, Dion had a great agent, and unfortunately, he's passed away and passed on, and gave Dion great advice and how to work things. Dion's trying to do that with Shedeur, and Shedeur's got to say, look, Dad, I need you to back off. Now I'm a pro. Coach Colorado. I'm no longer there. I'm going to get my own agent. I think that really hurt him. That also hurt him too. And to give the kid advice on how to work things, and I think he's going to learn a lesson about that. He's not going to get the multi-billion-dollar contract and also the 5th year as being a rookie first-round draft choice. He's going to get the 5th-round contract, Stephen, and I think that's going to humble him quite a bit. And so I think Shedeur has learned a valuable lesson here, and I think that Cleveland is going to treat this as say, hey, look, you're a 5th-round draft pick. You've got to compete for the job just like anybody else. Joe Flacco is going to be our starter. You're probably going to start a game or maybe one game or two. You're also going to be able to show your abilities in training camp and during the preseason. But as far as starting game 1, game 2, week 3, week 4, he's not going to do that. He probably will start maybe in a week 12 game if the Browns are out of playoff contention. If they're in playoff contention, don't expect to see him. Joe Flacco will continue to be your quarterback. But if, let's say, the Browns are 3-9 when it comes down to week 13 or week 14, expect maybe Shedeur to get a cup of coffee to say, hey, look, we're going to give you a chance to start. Let's see what you can do. But as far as anything else, as a 5th-round draft pick, 5th-round draft picks have to compete just like everybody else. And Tom Brady, he had to compete for, be a rookie just like anybody else. He was a regular rookie, and, he didn't come in until after Drew Bledsoe was hurt against the New York Jets. And it was only until, we got to see what he could do, but he became that legend. But, Shedeur Sanders has to bide his time and learn the lesson. And, and I think that he will eventually learn that. But right now, he's got to, first off, like I said, he's got to fire his dad as his agent. He's got to get his own independent representation to help him out. And that would be my first priority for Shedeur if I were giving him advice.
Mm-hmm. Well said. Now I'm going to a little bit go veer off. I know we were talking about, father and son thing, about Jeff Ulbrich, and then Shedeur and Deion Sanders. There was another interesting thing I wanted to share with you, Ken, regarding this kid, 4-star recruit Trey Taylor from the Chicago area. He was making his announcement 2 days ago.
Mm-hmm.
On actually 3 days ago on the 1st, his commitment announcement. So he had Illinois, Nebraska, Texas A&M, and LSU. And here's how he conducted his announcement. Here we go.
Yeah, go ahead.
I've been waiting for since I was in 7th grade when I got my first offer. I'm going to stay home and go to Illinois.
Okay, I'm going to pause it right here. Obviously, he acted it. And then that was not well received by anybody. So this is his father posting his son's apologies a couple of days later. Here we go. Let me just post it up here.
I want to start this video off with saying thank you for all the support I've gotten today. But I did want to film this video to apologize to Illini Nation. Throwing the hat the way I did today during my commitment is not the way I want to be perceived. And, I know that was very disrespectful. And I really just want to get on here, and say that that's not who I am. That's not the way, I want to be known as. The moment got to me a little bit, and I just want to say sorry. But I'm very grateful for all the support that Illini Nation has brought to me, and the coaching staff.
All right, so this is his father. Yep, my 16-year-old son made a mistake he wished he could have back. The Illinois program has been great to Trey. He meant no disrespect to anyone in that organization, but he did it. He did do it and must deal with the consequences. Live and learn, son. Live and learn. Okay, now I'm going to be honest. I'm a Illinois fan. My co-host in Bears conversations that I do with Rashad Shakiri is a Illinois alumni himself. I didn't talk about this, but as an Illinois fan, under Brett Bielema, they have kind of been on the upswing, and that's good. Now that kid Trey Taylor was actually from class of 2027, so he's not going to be playing in college football for another 2 more years. And I think it's a little bit of a stark contrast in how a father and son duo handle this matter. And I know, Ken, you probably don't know much about this, but as somebody who's been in the sports business and writing about these things for a long time, let me pose you this question. When an action of that matters, when you see an action, that speaks loud, pretty much, we talk about this, and they always, people like other people, they always make excuses about that's not who I am and so forth. Mm-hmm. And when you saw that on what you just saw with his throwing the hat, being disrespectful, and then having to offer what I think a lot of people would be like, he only apologized because he was, maybe, forced to, or being, I don't want to say death threats on social media and so forth. And then his father having to tell his son to, obviously you need to learn from this and so forth. What are your, overall prevailing thoughts about, about this, the apologies and how he took it out on social media and so forth?
Well, I gotta say, first off, the kid was probably trying to be funny, and we see all these switcheroos all the time, but I think he was trying to be funny, and he ended up not being funny. So he thought he was to be a prank, and you gotta realize, you gotta read the room. You're in Illinois. I think he lives in Illinois. Is that what you're telling me, Steven?
Yes, he is from I think from Mount Carmel, which is a pretty good school that's been football high school powerhouse in that state. Also, they've also had a lot of national recruits. I think they're also pretty good in basketball as well. But go ahead, so.
Yeah, so I think he was trying to be funny, but you got to read the room. You got to know that you're in Illinois. You're you got a fan base that's rabid in the Big Ten that loves the Fighting Illini. So you got to read the room. And when you do something like that and try and pull a switcheroo, maybe do it a little bit. If you're gonna play a prank like that,
do it with more class, I guess.
Yeah, do it with classy. Just say, hey, look, I've talked with the Illini. I've done all my homework. But as much as I would love to stay at home, I've decided to choose Nebraska. Now, that's going to be a little bit. Will the fans like that? No. But when you do it like that a little bit, if you temper that a little bit more, fans will probably accept it. But also, I give the dad credit for basically saying that's not the way to do it, son, and putting it on his social media.
I didn't raise you to be like that. Yeah,
Yeah, and that's something that a little bit different than what I saw from Jeff Ulbrich. He said, look, I didn't raise my son to be like that. If I heard that, I'd say, hey, wow, that's a dad who came down and cracked down. This is a dad who said, hey, look, I didn't raise you to be like that. That's not the way to do it. And he put it on his social media. I appreciate that. I appreciate that more than if the kid put it on his social media, because you'd say, okay, he's forced to make an apology. He's putting it on his own social media. No, the dad put it on there. That means more to me. That's a dad who's just said, hey, look. And he probably was sitting there and he said he was probably embarrassed by his son making that type of action. So I think for him to put that out there right away, I think that speaks volumes, Stephen. I think that the kid definitely going to learn a lesson. The kid might have gone home and he might have. I don't want to say he got hit by his dad, because we don't endorse
whoop ass or something like that.
But he does
absolutely.
probably yelled at his son quite a bit. And Stephen, and you and I are the offspring of Asian parents who can be tiger parents. We all know that, And I also know that black dads can be very, very tough on their sons. So I can think that kid probably heard a lot from his dad. Not only that night, he's probably still hearing about it now. So I appreciate that, and I love the fact that he did that and put it on his own social media. And he said, "You have a live and learn, son." That means a lot. That speaks volumes to me about a dad who loves his son, but also just says, "Hey, look, I'm not your friend. You're going to learn it, and you're going to learn a lot, and you're going to apologize right now." And I'm putting it on my social media. You're not going to put it on yours, where you can delete it years later. It's going to stay on my social media, where you're going to be seeing it for years and forever. So I think that's a great thing. That's a great message.
That video, the way he threw the hat will also be there. And then when Illinois and Nebraska face each other, with Trey Taylor,
he'll be booed.
Supposedly, hopefully being the quarterbacks, the Illini fans will always remember that for the rest of their lives, because it's going to live forever too. So,
absolutely.
I'm glad that his father was, stern enough to tell him that there's a repercussion. So, listen, don't bring me down. Don't bring me into this. Don't bring my mom into this. Don't bring my family into this. I'm sure there were no discussions beforehand about, he was going to do something like this at all, even if, the college choices was already made. But, I'm sure that was something that was completely caught off guard, even by his father too. So, and again, I totally agree. I'm very glad that his father told his son, hey, I didn't raise you to be, an idiot, and disrespect, schools that wanted you from the get-go, and that's not how I want you to be remembered, and that's not how I raised you to be. So good for his father to put his son.
Yeah, I'm sure that yelling
put it, and then just post it there, and then also make sure that my son is not like that. He's very, very sorry, and that he's going to live and learn from his mistakes. So
I'm sure the yelling was in the car too. I'm sure that dad took him into the car and started yelling at him.
I'm sure that going home, being in a car felt like a eternity. It felt really, really weird. I'm sure the conversation went very, very well.
Stephen, you and I have been. I can pretty much. I think it's safe to assume that you and I have both been yelled by our dads. So
I've been punished too, physically too, unfortunately.
I can only imagine what that conversation is like. I've had my dad yell at me in the car, and not only yell at me in the car, continue to yell at me at home, and continue to yell.
Same.
So I can only imagine that dad. So I get my hats off to the dad. So for taking action and doing that. So hats off. Our hats off go off to the dad.
Mm-hmm. All right, let's move on to the latest on the NBA and the NHL playoffs. The NBA, obviously, there's a couple of, Game 7, Golden State and Houston later tonight. And then the two LA teams, the Clippers were blown out by Denver last night. The Minnesota made a quick work of the LA Lakers in 5 games. Two LA teams, obviously, it's a big market, but a lot of their stars are kind of getting up there in age. LeBron is 40 right now. He was seen limping off the field after the loss. And then JJ Redick, the head coach, who barely had any coaching experience, straight out of ESPN's First Take himself. He looked like he wasn't well equipped to handle, the questions that was being posed by the media, which is kind of ironic because he was part of the media himself and being a hot take guy on certainly a lot of things, mostly NBA, of course. And now he's the one getting answered and grilled for the shortcomings and then the LA's very quick exit. Ken, let's start with the the Lakers. The future of LeBron, JR exit, JJ Redick as a head coach moving forward. And what to make of Luka Doncic is a very short stint with the Lakers so far, and what kind of future he faces moving forward.
Well, JJ Redick, I think his inexperience coaching. I mean, for the Lakers had a very good regular season. Let's face it, for what they had and what they did in trying to get the Luka Doncic trade, they did. They had a very good regular season, but it's all about the playoffs, as you and I well know, Steven, especially in the NBA and the NHL. It's what you do in the postseason. And JJ's Redick's inexperience on coaching came, reared its ugly head because, you got to have a rotation of a bench. And then with his decisions to have a 40-year-old LeBron James play an entire fourth quarter and not bench him, not give him some rest. He looked tired out. He made some bad decisions. At 40, 25-year-old player is not the same as a 40-year-old player. You're tired. You're not going to be able to go an entire 48 minutes like it was, like they do now. So, in 12-minute quarters, you need a blow. You need to sit down. And JJ Redick didn't seem to grasp that. He kept his players out there for an entire fourth quarter, and LeBron James threw the ball away. He made some bad passes. He couldn't hit shots. He was trying to do 3-point shots. They fell short. You could see that. And also Luka Doncic. People are now saying, well, maybe Dallas was right in trading him because he looked tired out there too. And also these injuries that come out. So, and that's also one of the things that were questions about him during the NBA Finals last year against Boston. So, JJ Redick said in his press conference, in the exit press conference the day after they got eliminated by Dallas. Didn't get eliminated by Dallas, but when they got eliminated, they basically said that we need to be in championship shape. Well, who is that, Steven? There's only one person who that's going to be thrown at, and that's Luka Doncic. We know that LeBron is in shape. He's not going to talk about that with Bronny. He's not going to talk about with any other player. There's only one player who is basically has questions about his physical attributes out there, and that's Luka Doncic. So, I know that coaches have said and called out players without calling out players before. Let's just hope that JJ Redick had talked to Luka Doncic and says, hey, I'm going to come out there. I'm going to basically talk about you without saying your name. So that definitely shows a little inexperience, especially the way he coached. Maybe the comments were a little bit raised eyebrows because you're thinking, hey, who's he talking about? There's only one person he can be talking about there. And I'm surprised the media didn't call him out on that. The media didn't really ask, hey, are you talking about Luka Doncic? They really didn't do that. So I'm kind of surprised they didn't call him out. But also at the same time, I think that JJ is going to learn a few lessons about this and learning about the playoff rotation and learning how to get maybe bring about 4 or 5 more, maybe bringing about 3 or 4 more players to give his because LeBron James isn't getting any younger. He's going to be 41 next year, and he's still going to have an experienced Bronny out there. And Luka Doncic has got to get into shape. Now, whether that means having LeBron get him bring him over and say, hey, look, I'm going to show you how to get into shape so you don't get injured out there anymore, or get somebody in there to get him a conditioning program, or get a nutritionist out there to help him out. That's going to be that's got to be some interesting things out there because as we mentioned, LeBron's not getting any younger, and if he wants to win another championship, I'm sure he's going to try and get some more players in there, as he's basically the de facto general manager. Steven, we all know this, what are your thoughts on this one?
Well, I think LeBron will be back for at least one more year. I think he's probably wants to finish one more year with LA. I think he wants to desperately want to make sure that Bronny and himself are on the floor and then just play together. And then I think there will be, LeBron trying to encourage Luka Doncic to sign long term to be like his, heir apparent, successor to the Lakers. If Doncic wants to, stay in LA and be the guy that, takes over the reins after, LeBron leaves, I can definitely see that happening. And again, this is a big offseason for the Luka himself. When you're getting publicly called out by, JJ like that, that doesn't sound that's not very, very encouraging. I know he said that he's going to probably play in the international basketball competition. I think FIBA basketball tournament later this year. So we'll see if he can stay healthy and then not suffer any significant injuries that would sideline him, like where unfortunately I have come accustomed to seeing. Luka's a terrific talent. There's no question about it. But Luka himself has to, focus his mind on, what kind of a player he wants to be. Where does he want to take his career to? So I know they got one more year left on his current contract that was signed from Dallas. It will be very interesting to see if Lakers are able to, keep him long term, or this is going to be this upcoming 2025-2026 is going to be the last season for both, LeBron and Luka Doncic himself. There are a lot of unquestioned uncertainties that the Lakers are going to be, faced with. And the same with the Clippers. They got themselves bounced yesterday in a game against Denver that was very non-competitive. They were down by at least 30 or more points at one point. And the Lakers, the Clippers are getting a little bit older, long in tooth. James Harden, failed to show up once again in Game 7. Kawhi Leonard, he's getting up there in age-wise too. He's had some injuries that he had to deal with. Very interesting to see what happens with it, Clippers and the Lakers and how they approach this upcoming off season as well. The Golden State Warriors are, in the same predicament, facing Houston in a do or die situation tonight. They were up 3-1 and then now they've lost the last 2 games. Steph Curry is getting up there age-wise, as is Draymond Green and among other things. A lot of the younger players that they have, Kuminga, Moses Moody, James Wiseman at one point that was supposed to be like a superstar type, but really, failed. And now he's, I think, in Detroit or somewhere else right now. It's Golden State Warriors could be saying, asking some tough questions. They got Jimmy Butler late in the season. So, Butler was rejuvenated and has played very, very well late down the stretch and also in this playoffs, despite him suffering an injury. But, Golden State, whether they win or lose, they're going to have some tough matchups in the second round against the, Minnesota Timberwolves, who's younger, hungry, and more faster as well. So, it's going to be a very, very interesting challenge that these high-profile teams faced, this offseason as well. The second round is already underway for Cleveland and Indiana right now. Cleveland is struggling right now against Indiana after sweeping the Miami Heat. Darius Garland, the point guard, is hurt and probably are not 100% and is probably not going to be ready. Even if he was to play, he's not at 100%. I think he's not playing tonight. It seems as though the Indianapolis has gotten their numbers against Cleveland so far tonight. And if the score holds, they get a 1-0 lead on the Cleveland Cavaliers right now. And then on the other side, West, 2 MVP candidates: Doncic versus Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, Denver versus Oklahoma City. I have Oklahoma City going in this one in 6 games. I don't think the winning, whether it's Denver or Oklahoma City, should not have any significant bearing on the the MVP votes between Alexander or Jokic. Ken, where do you stand on the second round NBA conversations?
Well, I'm going to be interested to see that Boston New York series. Now that the New York has gotten past Detroit. By the way, I want to tell the New York Knicks. I understand that you won a playoff series. Let's not treat it like you won the NBA championship, okay? Let's not hold a ticker tape parade down the Canyon of Heroes yet. You haven't won anything, okay? So I understand you want to celebrate. I understand that that this was a hard-fought series against Detroit, and you took until down to the end to finally clinch the game with 4.3 seconds left. But there's a reason why the Celtics have won a championship last year is because they didn't treat the first round like the World Championship. They said, "Hey, look, we're not done yet. We need to go. There's a lot of work to do. We got to win 4 series. We didn't treat the. This is why I don't think the Knicks are going to win. The Celtics will. I don't think the Celtics will sweep them, but I think the Celtics will beat them in maybe 5 to 6 games. The Knicks haven't won anything. The Celtics have been there before. They know what to do, and I think this is one of the reasons why they'll get to the Eastern Conference Finals against Cleveland. At least if Cleveland actually decides to show up against Indiana. Right now, they're losing game 1 at home. Interestingly enough, so you got to show up, and I understand. You want to win. Everybody wants to win, but don't treat the first round like you won the NBA championship because you haven't gotten there yet. You got to win 16 games. You've only won 4. So, and you may get a humbling when you get to Boston. The Celtics may blow you out because you expended so much energy after winning your first round series. So you gotta know your own energy there. And the Celtics, I think, have to be heavily favored, Steven. I know the Knicks at the Boston and New York are a great rivalry, and I have a feeling, to be honest with you, that the Knicks they'll show up, but I just don't think that they're mature yet. And the maturity is and I know that Stephen A. Smith is going to be behind the Knicks and be pounding the table for the Knicks on First Take. But I gotta tell you that the Boston should take that series. And Cleveland, I thought Cleveland and Indiana is tough. Indiana, they're not and we know about Halliburton's dad. He's going to be home. He's not going to be watching any of the series from this. He was told basically that you're not going to be able to show up at the you stay home for road games and home games. So we're not going to see things like we saw in the first round. But I got to say that Indiana, I think they're on a mission. And they're going to play. I can see this series being 7 games easily, Steven. If this is the
I don't think it's an easy at all. Yeah.
It's not going to be easy. I think Cleveland will get it, but it's going to right now, as I see it right now, and Cleveland is having trouble at home. If they lose home court advantage in game 1, Steven, that's going to be this is going to be a tough grinded out series. It's going to be a very long series.
Yeah, I agree. Quickly, Ken, what are your thoughts on the Jokic, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander on the next round? Do you think that has any bearings on the MVP voting, or it doesn't matter?
I think the MVP. I think Jokic is still going to win the MVP. I really do.
You do? Okay.
I think he's still, he's still showing to me that I know that in some of the more recent games, it hasn't shown that type, but I do think he'll win the MVP.
Okay, so there are no fatigue factors about Jokic winning again, and then people just vote, SGA just out of spite of it.
Yeah, I know. I mean, Jokic does stuff out on the court that still nobody that his size can do. He can still put Denver on his back, Steven. We've seen it. So. Sure. Yeah, media may. You got to be. You can't be thinking, oh, I got it just because I voted for him so many times in the past. He doesn't deserve it. He still is the best player out there. I mean, there's no doubt about that. I mean, we see what he does. So I have to say that in my mind, Jokic is the MVP unless somebody really outplays him on the court, and I don't see that.
Okay. Quickly on to the NHL. Washington advances. They'll face the winner. Obviously, Florida. They beat the Tampa in 6 games, which was a rather easy one. Pretty much. The Toronto also beat Ottawa in 6 games as well. They'll probably the Carolina also beat New Jersey in 6 games. It's Washington, I guess, versus Carolina, and then Toronto versus Florida. And on the west side, Edmonton beat LA in 6. So it's Edmonton versus Vegas, who beat Minnesota in 6 games. And then on the other side, it's Dallas facing the winner of tonight's St. Louis Winnipeg. Right now, I think it's still St. Louis leading this one, right, Ken?
Yeah, 2-1. The Winnipeg just got a goal.
Okay. Now, yesterday's, I said that Dallas might not be winning this one, but I was actually wrong. Mikko Rantanen, the former Colorado guy, who was traded twice in the month of January, from Colorado to Carolina, then to Dallas, and eventually signed a long-term extension. He came up big against his former team in the third period where, Dallas was down 2-0 and basically looked like they were dead in the water. And then Mikko Rantanen picked it up and just really willed his team, Stars, to the victory over his former team, the Colorado Avalanche. Really a stellar performance. I saw the game. It was incredible.
Yeah, it was so unbelievable.
Yeah, it was really unbelievable. The energy in the American Airlines Center in Dallas has always been really incredible.
Really ramped it up last night. They really did.
And they scored a goal. You hear the Pantera music. It's a staple there. Obviously Pantera, the heavy metal band, down there, longtime supporter of the Stars when they relocated from Minnesota back in the early 2000s.
Yeah, Brent Hull was that, and then they're throwing the Stanley Cup in the pool during Brent Hull's party and all that stuff. Yeah, we all remember that. But yeah, last night, Mikko Rantanen, as you mentioned, Stephen. I mean, the 2-goal lead, and I said this last night while I was watching the game. The 2-goal lead is the worst lead in hockey, and I don't know what it is about the 2-goal lead, but where teams just relax and think they have a series, especially on the road. Colorado hasn't won a Game 7 dating back to 2002, and up until that point last night, they hadn't won 6 Game 7s. And yes, they won a cup. And I know they won a cup in between that time, but they didn't have to go 7 games. So last night, when Nathan McKinnon scored the goal to put them up 2-0, I had no confidence that Colorado was going to win that game. I really didn't, because I said, it's a 2-goal lead, and then Dallas is at home. And sure enough, Mikko Rantanen, once he scored his first goal and you had the crowd going crazy, that really, I think, unnerved Colorado, because now they have a guy, they're a former brother on their team who's played there 10 years. They know what he's capable of. And Mikko Rantanen then went crazy. I mean, he scored a power play goal shortly after that. He assisted on the power play goal that put them up 3-2. And then Colorado with a very bad penalty with 4:57 left to go in the third period, a tripping call that probably back in the day, back 10 years ago, would not have been called. But now the officiating and has gotten a little bit better, so they're going to make that call. It was a tripping call. You have to call that. So they got a penalty on it, and then Mikko Rantanen assisted on that goal, and then he scored an empty net goal to finally to salt the game away. It was just an amazing performance. 4 consecutive goals, especially from the 11-minute mark on, Stephen. It looked like Dallas was dead. as you mentioned. But
Yeah.
I just thought that once Mikko Rantanen just said, "Hey, look, this is my former team. I know that they don't win in game sevens. I know if I get a goal, we can rattle them." And that's exactly what happened. And as you mentioned, with Pantera playing and that whole crowd, and I give ESPN and ABC credit for bringing the crowd noise into it, and so we could hear that atmosphere. That's one thing of a complaint of ESPN and TNT's coverage over this year, is that they don't have enough of the crowd mics turned up, so we can't hear the atmosphere, especially in the Canadian arenas. But in this case, we heard it in Dallas. It was a great atmosphere, and once the crowd really got into it with Mikko Rantanen's first goal, I think the Avalanche were very rattled, and they just couldn't stop a train that was basically coming downhill at 155 miles an hour. Once that train started going, there's nothing the Avalanche could have done. And now they have a lot of a curse that's gone on over 20 years, Stephen. 7 consecutive game sevens, which they've lost. I'm sure that's in their head. That's going to be in their head. And whenever they get to a game 7 again, especially if they do it again next season, they're going to be thinking, we're in game 7. We can't win a game 7. It gets in your head. I mean, they can say as much as that, oh, this is different. The 2002 team that lost a game 7 isn't the same one. But no, you're the same team that has lost 3 consecutive game 7s in the first round. It's definitely going to get in your head. So that's definitely, okay. I think the Colorado Avalanche are definitely spinning right now. And, right now, Dallas, I think, has a lot of confidence no matter who advances in this next series, which is St. Louis or Winnipeg. And right now, St. Louis has the lead 2-1 in game 7 in the second period of Winnipeg.
Absolutely. All right, Ken, let's kind of put a bow on the show tonight. I know we've gone over a little bit of an hour. It's a final word segment that I kind of wanted to touch about, the sporting events and the organizers. So I know Ken wasn't really aware of this, but there was a boxing event that was held in New York City, Times Square, authorized by the Rings Boxing Magazine and the organizer from Saudi Arabia. I know I'm going to probably butcher his name, so I'm going to try and just learn. Turkai Al-Sheikh I believe is the name. So they put a big event in Times Square, but then they actually blocked off with fence, but no one else can see it. Now, this event was in the works for quite a bit for a long time. Obviously, there were some high-profile boxers like Ryan Garcia, Devin Haney. Haney lost to Garcia, but later it was found that Garcia tested positive for illegal substances and PhD. And then Garcia had all kinds of trouble himself, being in trouble with the law and so forth. Overall, the event was a real snooze fest. And then you put an event for, at a Times Square where, it's obviously a huge deal, but you put an event of this magnitude and then you can't have people see for whatever reasons. And, it's a real downer for whatever the attempt. I'm sure it was well intended, but, my question is literally, what is the purpose of putting out an event of this magnitude in the biggest stage in the world, and the fans cannot even see it, or at least put up a fence of this magnitude? And then yesterday, another boxing match took place. Again, this was the same promoter who did it. Canelo Alvarez against Will Skull. It was in a snooze fest that held in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, which I believe the match itself was at 5:00 in the morning, because it was in Saudi Arabia. It was in 5:00 in the morning their time, and then the match itself was a real snooze fest. Basically, Canelo Alvarez, just literally easily won. But there was one judge who put it 115, 113 Alvarez, which was utterly ridiculous because it wasn't that close at all. Now, Alvarez and Terrence Crawford will fight in September for the super middleweight fight title there. Yeah. Finally, yes. And then today was also the day Miami Grand Prix Formula One took place, and I was actually kind of saw an interesting quote from Ryan McGee, who was covering the the race for ESPN. Here's what he says. I recognize all the athletes at Miami GP. This is, by the way, Baltimore Ravens running back Derrick Henry. But I need my daughter here to tell me who the influencers are. There will be crush of photogs around the women dressed in a fishnet taking selfies. And I'm like, who the hell is that? Because they're clearly somebody.
Right.
Now, Ken, I had to kind of post my own thoughts on this. Most sporting events these days are so overpriced, it is ridiculous. Majority of these organizers are clearly interested in catering to a bunch of so-called influencers that both Ryan and people like me have no idea who they are and what the hell they actually do for a living. It's the same thing with the the boxing event that was held in Times Square. Clearly, they just wanted to stage there for Turkey Alcala, for probably to impress his Middle Eastern friends or rich influencers or whoever the hell that was actually in attendance, while the rest of the world was completely blocked off and shut off in a match that was completely a snooze fest, according to people like Dan Raphael, the longtime boxing writer. Now he has his own Substack, he used to write for USA Today and ESPN for a long, long time. Ken, you just kind of feel that, the sporting events of this nature sometimes, it feels like it's just so detached from the reality. And, we touched on this, the streaming, it has become more and more expensive. The price keeps going up for an average fan to keep up with, they want to see a specific sports like, NBA or Premier League or whatever. They have to be subscribed to multiple streaming services and whatnot. So I want your honest opinion about somebody who writes sports for a living, about the current state of the sports, not just from a media but from like an attending a game, which has become more and more expensive. I saw there was a tweet about somebody complaining about the White Sox game where the water was being charged for $7.49. And the parking for like $30 and et cetera, which is a lot more than the ticket itself, because White Sox stink so badly. But what are your thoughts on the current vision, current state of the sports, viewing and the fans being priced out and all that?
Yeah, well, I do. When you did mention the Times Square event, I do recall that Pat McAfee did a show from there on Friday to try and promote.
Right, and he was very, very ripping about the Zone, which was actually the official carrier of this fight. And then it was the production and everything was so bad that even Pat McAfee, I think, had to take a shot about it. But go ahead, I apologize.
Yeah, I do know that the fact that the Zone carried both fights, the Times Square fight and the Canelo fight. It went on at midnight Eastern time, so it could accommodate United States viewers. But again, 5 a.m. in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. Who can really watch it there? I don't know if there was I didn't see any of the fight, so I don't know if there was a big crowd there, Stephen. And I don't. Right.
They said that it was like 6,000, but I don't know anybody who's willing to stay up that late at 5 a.m, much less to watch a boxing match. But I guess people there are built differently. Who knows? But.
Yeah. But, again, I think it's all part of Saudi Arabia's sports washing, because they have a partnership with TK, UFC, and also WWE. Both organizations have held events there. I do give WWE credit for taking Crown Jewel, which is a premier live event. Normally that is run in Saudi Arabia. They're going to take it and put it in Perth, Australia this year. So I give them credit for taking that event away. Because I think they felt that I don't know what the reasoning was, but to bring that to Australia, to bring it to more fans, I think that's a little bit better than putting it in Saudi Arabia, where they don't treat women well and women have to be covered up to wrestle, and especially in a very hot arena. So I think that's one thing. But again, we can talk about TKO pricing out people who went to WrestleMania and also other events, but that's for another day. But again, these events, as you mentioned, where you try to get influencers, Stephen, like I noticed that like Gracie Hunt, who is the daughter of Clark Hunt of the Kansas City Chiefs. I follow her Instagram, and her pictures are all over the Miami Grand Prix. Now, what does that have to do with the Kansas City Chiefs? Absolutely nothing. But she's an influencer, so they gave her a free trip to go over there to take pictures from a box. I mean, let's face it, Gracie Hunt is a beautiful woman, and she's going to get her followers to say, oh, well, she's in Miami, maybe. But is she going to get her followers to go to Miami? No, absolutely not. So it's interesting how the sports is trying to tap into the influencers to try and get them to go. But at the same time, they don't have the money to go to these events. They don't have the money to go to a Times Square. And as you mentioned, the Times Square event was roped off so that the regular people who are walking around can't see it. That's unfair.
But they wouldn't even know what the heck is going on either,
Yeah. So you may want to try and get an event where you can see, at least have a zone where people who are walking around can at least look in and see what's going on, and they can say, hey, I'm at this event that maybe can hold a little bit more water than an influencer who is paid to be there and have their picture taken, and people have no idea. So I think, who are you catering to exactly, Stephen? I don't know who you're catering to, the Miami Grand Prix. And I know they do this with the Las Vegas Grand Prix too, because Formula One wants to get more people interested in it, but as they want to tap into a market that isn't necessarily love sports. They just want to be seen. So I don't know what they're doing. I honestly have no idea, Stephen. So it's a market that's foreign to me. They're not marketing to me. I'm in my 60s. Yes, I do see some of these influencers out there, but and some of these people who are trying to tap into a market that they're trying to get into. But is that market going to be coming to watch their events? I really doubt it.
No, I doubt it either. I think it kind of gives more of an impression that because the F1's contract is up here in America, and ESPN's probably not going to renew it. There's a question of whether F1's popularity is all of a sudden waning in this country after experienced a success with the Netflix series. What was the name of the title for that documentary?
I think it was Drive to. I think it was Drive to Succeed. I can't remember.
To Succeed? Yeah,
Drive to something like that.
Yeah, something like that. And then it kind of really caught on fire for a while, but it's unfortunate that a lot of the sporting events are kind of, the organizers are kind of forgotten who what makes sports great, and who the core audiences are. You're ignoring core audiences by pricing them out so much. The tickets, the concessions, food, beverages, everything is out of whack, unfortunately.
Right.
So it just makes it more and more difficult for average fan like you and me, or families, to even go to games and have a nice time there, regardless of wins and losses. So I just hope that tradition doesn't die, because it's so damn expensive for average family to attend. And I hope that there comes a moment in time where owners and organizers will finally come to their senses. How expensive that might be. That they'll come to senses and realize who the real fans are, and then allow the fans to be who are priced out to be allowed to come back into the game without having to spend entire months of paycheck just to attend the game. From going there, parking, getting into the seats, buying food, ticket, the concessions, and then just leaving out of the stadium. It just makes it more and more difficult to attend the game nowadays. So,
right. I've got one more real quick thing to come up. Coming up next week is the Eurovision Song Contest. Now, I know that has nothing to do with sports, and many of you have no idea. And maybe you're only exposure to Eurovision was the Will Ferrell movie that's currently playing on Netflix. You can find it there, but this is one of my favorite events every year, Steven. It's the Eurovision Song Contest. It's the biggest song contest in the world. Countries from Europe, 40 countries, and Australia, interestingly enough, vie for the best song. Well, I don't want to say the best song in the world, but it's basically a popularity contest. This year, it's going to be held, I believe, in Switzerland. I think it's going to be held in Basel. If I have to look it up, but I'm
Switzerland. Okay.
I'm a big fan of this every year, Steven. I love this event. It's one of my favorites. I just can't go and I can't rave enough. People on my social media know that I'll watch this. Last year I took the week off from to watch it. This year I won't be doing that, but I'll be watching the final. At least it'll be in 2 weeks. It'll be not next Saturday, but it'll be on Saturday, May 17th. They have the semifinals on the Tuesday and Thursday before that. It's always fun. The big five of countries of the United Kingdom, France, Italy, Germany, and France, they all go in. Spain automatically qualify because they pay the most money for the European Broadcasting Union, which runs the event. This is now the 69th event. It was originally an event to try to unify Europe after World War II. It's become one of the biggest events, social calendar of the year. It's watched second, I think, mostly. The popularity of this audience is worldwide. It's kind of similar to World Cup audiences, so it's a lot of fun to watch. And last year, my favorite was Baby Lasagna from Croatia. It finished second, unfortunately, to the Swiss entry, but it's going to be a lot of fun. And this year, my favorite is right now an entry from San Marino. It's an Italian singer who won their event to represent San Marino, which is the neighboring country, and it's a song about Italy. So it's really, really going to be fun to watch. It's if you go to YouTube and you look under Eurovision and the entries, are some of the songs cheesy? Yes. Are some of the songs silly? Yes. But it's a great thing. It's a lot of pageantry. It's a lot of fun. It's a great event to go to. It's on my bucket list, Steven, to go to. So the Eurovision Song Contest is coming up in 2 weeks. In 2 weeks, I'll talk about the winner, but I'm not going. This is the last time I'll talk about it for now. But it's a lot of fun to watch. Peacock will run it in the United States for the final. The semifinals, Peacock will run the entire event for both the semifinals. So it's something to watch. It's a lot of fun. I enjoy it. I started watching this in 2015. It's on my calendar. It's a lot of fun. So something to fun. It has nothing to do with sports, but it is a competition, and there is actually political voting between the Eastern Bloc countries, and also Greece and Cyprus. They're always linked together, so it's always fun to watch that voting, especially from the national juries. But it's fun to watch. It's coming up in a couple of weeks, and I just want to let you all know about it. I hope you love it as much as I do. So that's a Eurovision Song Contest coming up. Nothing to do with sports, but that's my final word, Stephen.
I can think of Maneskin from Italy that has enjoyed a mainstream popularity.
Yes, Maneskin won a couple of years ago, and they won, and they become a favorite of mine.
Okay. All right. Well, on that note, thank you very much for joining us tonight. 129 people who joined us tonight. Thank you very much for watching this. Next week, as always, 7 p.m., 6 Central on Sunday evening. Barring any changes for either one of us, subject to change, we will definitely notify it on our X's as well. Ken, thanks for joining me once again. Enjoy your upcoming week, and I'll talk to you again next Sunday night. And have a great week, everybody. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time on the Double 18 Podcast Live Edition. Good night, everybody.
Good night.